Well, good morning, all. Busy week. Look forward to your questions. I think what I want to do is just, again, reemphasize the budget forecast and how absolutely happy we are with respect to the results of that forecast. It is evident here, showing now a $1.2 billion surplus on the current budget. That is, I think, phenomenal from the standpoint of growth across Minnesota. I think it reflects some good policies from the standpoint of what we did last year to move us in this direction. Certainly reflects companies that are on the uptick, so to speak, from the standpoint of taking some risk, taking some chances, building some houses, farmers buying some pickups, all those kind of things I think are reflected in that, and I think it's very positive. And I think it's codified by the fact the second budget surplus in a row. So I think from our point of view, we feel good about it. I think we feel, generally speaking, that it now allows us, I think, to look forward with some additional confidence as we move through the rest of this session. Everything's positive about this. So that's frankly the message this morning. I could get into things like LIFO, and we had a good breakfast, I think, with the governor this morning talking about that, encouraging him to strongly consider signing this bill. We'll continue to work with the governor in that respect. But the message I think that I want to just offer and leave with you this morning, and we can take questions beyond this, is the beauty of this budget forecast. It is something that hasn't happened in recent years, but more recently now we're seeing this state come around financially, and I think we're all certainly better off for it. Kurt?
And I'll maybe do a little bit of reiterating, but also a compliment to the citizens of Minnesota. This is a budget surplus that a lot of folks, with what we went through last year in budget negotiations, were maybe a little disappointed or not thrilled with the way the process went forward. But when you look at the results and $1.2 billion, folks need to hear about that. It's interesting to talk about other things that don't have bill form yet but are very enticing, but this is hard data. And I think the citizens of Minnesota need to know about it, need to hear about it, and need to be very proud of the work that they've done. It's our job, yes, to come down here, not add to the burden, not raise taxes, and we'll be happy to bore you with all the statistics of Illinois or California or states that have tried to raise taxes. I know the governor talked about if they would have just passed my tax increase, the surplus would have been bigger, but there was also an additional $1 billion worth of spending in there. That number you're going to hit never comes in, and then the spending on top of it would have probably done at least a little bit more damage, but would not have produced those surpluses. So this is good news for the citizens of Minnesota. It is hard work on their behalf, on the behalf of many legislators down here, and the governor. He should also cheerlead the fact that we're $1.2 billion in surplus now. Yes, starting to pay back our education shift, which is still out there. But from a financial management standpoint, filling up your cash flow and your budget reserves is a good thing for the state of Minnesota. It's good fiscal management. It's what we hear from the business community. They want to see us putting our fiscal house in order so that they feel confident that they're not going to be asked for either additional taxes, fees, whatnot. But with that, I'll give you maybe a little preview of next week. We're going to have permitting streamlining will be in Ways and Means on Monday, another big initiative from the business community, but from all Minnesotans on all different areas. We're going to have mayoral control, Minneapolis-St. Paul School, and then parent petition up in education reform on Thursday, and possibly photo ID and GovOps on Thursday. So with that, any questions?
On this budget, shouldn't be, instead of congratulating each other, shouldn't you guys be actually thanking the feds and DHS for botching the Medicaid expansion? I mean, that's more than half of the surplus is one-time money from the federal government and DHS overestimating how many people are going to enroll in MA.
Well, I don't think I'm ever going to compliment the government on their bad estimations, because that's what it is. You know, it's bad estimations. And declining enrollment in schools is another portion of it. That can actually be taken into there. But some of this is also from reduction in spending. $348 million in November, $230 million in February. That's $578 million in reduced spending. So the other part of it is, yes, there was an increase in the wages or the revenue that taxpayers sent in. individuals, not corporations, because there was a loss there. We're still not out of this, but there were individuals that produce more money. Not enough, but the trend is if you let them keep their money, they will actually produce more. We will see more surpluses. So the federal government, we're trying to do our portion here, and I hear this all across the country, states making sure and taking care of their fiscal house because they don't know what's going to happen with the Fed. So to your point, I'm not going to, I could blame them for some of the problems, but I'm not going to give them credit.
I'm confused.
Let's also just realize, I mean, look at the unemployment rate, you know, 1/10% better. That's more jobs. That's good.
Microphone.
No, I mean, to amplify a little bit, what does the unemployment rate really mean? It means more people are working. They're working because of business confidence, large part. So, and I think business confidence comes about when businesses realize that this state is taking very seriously its fiscal responsibilities, avoiding taxes which are going to prevent that investment, but generally speaking, allowing business to go forward with a degree of confidence that allows them to hire people. That's what's important. That's what we're all about, and the standpoint of both purpose and message. How do we get Minnesota businesses to at least set the stage for them, to allow them to go forward and make those investments in people. More people working, the better those charts look.
I'm confused by your credit taking in 2012 and your credit blaming in 2010, particularly since there's a DFL governor now and there's a Republican governor in those awful empty bucket years. So does the governor have nothing to do with the surplus or the deficit?
No, as I very clearly stated, the governor should take credit as well. He should say we have a $1.2 billion surplus. And yeah, there were, and if we were going to be true to form, I think you probably took away 75 pages worth of the Democrat handbook from George Bush's failed presidency for about 8 years. He was blamed for everything but the sun not coming up in the morning. So we're just showing very clearly what's happened. Again, not patting ourselves on the back. I said it on Tuesday. I say it again today that this is the hard work of Minnesotans, not us. We did our job of not getting in the way and not adding a tax burden on. But again, and we recognize the education shift has to be paid back. That's why we put it in statute. My colleagues in the Democrat Party that were in when they used the education shift did not put it in statute.
So were hardworking Minnesotans not working so hard in your 2010 year there?
No, they were working just as hard, but again, it was down economic times, and there was some increase in spending. Governor Pawlenty maybe didn't want to sign some of those bills, but had to sign some of those bills that increased spending. We held off the spending this year. We balanced the budget without a tax increase. Again, going forward, the point is that there's a surplus. And to cheerlead against that, I think, is bad for Minnesotans. It's certainly bad for business owners that are looking at this and saying, well, you know, anybody says, well, yeah, it was only $323 million. Well, you know what? It is an increase. We are going the other way, and you've got to be positive about that because it's easy to cheerlead the bad times or to bemoan the bad times. We are saying that Minnesotans have got to know that there is getting better. Our unemployment rate is 2.4% below the national average. Traditionally, we are 1.4% below the national average. Minnesota is on the uptake, and to recognize that is important for our business community. It's important for business owners that are looking at expanding in Minnesota or not expanding in Minnesota. So we think it's very important that they know this. Maybe hasn't quite gotten out as well as it should, so we're highlighting it again today.
Just figuring you still have a deficit coming in 14 and 15, and we are understating that deficit as compared with other years in that we changed the law in 11 to not count the school shift as part of the deficit.
Sure.
Why was that change made, and is that what would be, in your view, an accurate accounting of the deficit that the state faces going forward?
Sure. And the out-year deficit we've addressed many times. Until that's zero or a positive, a surplus, that's what we're going to look at. It was, I believe, over $4 billion when we took over. After the budget was signed last year, it was down to about 1.6. I think it's down to from 1.3 in November down to 1.1. So $700 million in a short amount of time is a good start, but we're not going to be satisfied until it is zero or, again, producing surpluses. The education shift, absolutely. Not only do we recognize it, we put it into statute to say after cash flow, after budget reserves, statute, the shift, education shift is next.
So let me follow up. You also took out of statute the requirement that that be accounted for as MMB projects surpluses.
Sure.
Why did you do that?
Well, again, because it is, it's a payment shift, not necessarily. We're not taking something out of the general fund, like a cutting of a program or reducing a program budget. The schools are still getting the same amount of money. We're just not giving them to it on the exact day. Everything doesn't come in on Monday. Half will come in on, or 65% comes in Monday. The other 35% comes in on Friday or Thursday. So the recognition is that yes, the debt is there, but it's not as if it's a hardline cut. It's just a delay in the payment.
So do you buy that the deficit is really $2.4 billion then, with inflation and the school shift?
Well, the inflation
the economist
argument,
said that.
The inflation argument is good fodder for tax committee and for the economists. But again, we look at it from the standpoint of we have $1.2 billion in surplus. It's easy to focus on out-year budget deficits. If you wanted to do a hard focus on that in the 2006 years, you would have looked and thought, oh my God, we can spend money like crazy, because those out-year budgets had huge increases. We've managed what we have here today. We're starting to pay down our portion of the debt, which is about, from the education shift, about halfway now. We'll pay off that, and then we'll look at paying off the portion that the Democrats used.
You mentioned tax committee. Is this argument then for or for not doing the business property tax elimination? Well,
again, that will be a part going forward. We wanted to at least get a snapshot of the number first before we started having any conversations. I know Representative Holberg is very, very cautious about spending any money, whether it be paying back the shift, whether it be tax relief, whether it be any new programming or anything with any kind of new additional revenues being spent. So we're going to have that discussion as a caucus now. This just came out Tuesday, so we will look at that going forward.
But in like this, will you still do business property tax cuts?
You know what? At this point, I can't say.
Did the governor give you any indication what he has in mind for a supplemental budget proposal?
Not this morning, no.
And
No.
what's the Senate looking at as possible budget adjustments this session?
We haven't gotten anything. My understanding there's a HAVA issue we need to deal with in some form before we go home, but we haven't gotten into that at this point.
What were the conversations this morning with the governor about the stadium moving forward?
Nothing on the stadium. It was all on last in, first out. We talked about that bill and encouraged him to give it strong consideration.
Nothing at all, huh?
No.
What did he say about LIFO?
Well, he's got some concerns about it. I think he appreciates what we're trying to do here, but I think he also has some little hesitations relative to whether or not we need to do this at this point, whether the timing is right, and so on and so forth. But I would characterize him as on the edge, and certainly as we go forward, maybe some more discussion here can persuade him that this is a good bill and he ought to sign it. But we didn't convince him. I want to emphasize that, but I think we had a really good conversation.
Is there a version that could come out of conference committee that he could find palatable? What's the plan for that conference committee too?
Well, I'm not part of that myself, but we'll continue to reach out to the governor, see if we can find the magic potion that would allow him to step forward.
Conference committee?
Well, I think by keeping it in conference committee is our way of saying, let's keep working on this. Senator Wolf and Representative Peterson were at the breakfast this morning and made their case or continued to make their case. And I think Senator Wolf said something that's really was very poignant in this discussion, because it's always been based on, well, you're just going to punish certain teachers. And if you look at it again, as we try to from the kid standpoint, she said you can have 26 years experience as a teacher but have zero seniority in a new school. So we're not keeping the best teachers in the schools. If you have someone who has a bunch of seniority in a school but maybe doesn't have the most experience as a teacher, the case I used when my wife and I first got married, she was teaching in Robbinsdale, we moved to Maple Grove, we had to make the choice. And it wasn't a choice about which school she wanted to teach at. It was a choice about, it was a financial decision. If she goes to a new school, she's now the last one in, even though she's got 5 years worth of teaching fourth grade and was recruited by one of the principals up there, she would have lost her job. So you don't have a mother from Maple Grove teaching kids in her neighborhood. You have someone, and when it came, I brought it up this morning because when the storm came out on Tuesday, she went down to Robbinsdale. There are 6 other teachers from Maple Grove that drive to Robbinsdale instead of teaching in Maple Grove. So it's not about keeping the most experienced teachers in the classroom either. It's about the seniority system. And it should be that, in that case, the most experienced teacher wasn't in the classroom. And I think that's what our point was to the governor, to look at it from that perspective, because otherwise the union talking points are easy. They just want to do away with seniority. No, you want to have the best and the most experienced teacher in the classroom.
When might we see a hearing, conference committee hearing on that?
That
on what?
Life.
Well, we're off the in terms of a conference committee.
It's in conference committee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when
we
might
haven't
we?
appointed one yet? Have we? No, we.
Well, what is there any thought of when that might progress?
Oh.
Actually, having hearings, having conference committee, getting that kind of work going.
I think part of the breakfast was just to make sure and see if there were some things that we could talk about there. One of the things that Brandon Peterson brought up was that we're one of 11 states that had done something to address this. So looking around the country, is there something that maybe in Oklahoma, California, Illinois, somebody else who has done this, that the governor would, if this isn't the solution, then maybe there'd be something on that standpoint. So I think that's part of our mutual homework. He was going to look into it. We will look into it as well.
On the stadium, how hard do you expect to be lobbied?
20 minutes. Congratulations. Last one.
Well, somebody had to do it. How hard do you expect to be lobbied on the issue? How much lobbying force, both from members, from fans, from anti-fans, do you expect to see under the dome in the next 2 months?
I'm not sure that we know yet. I am sure that we don't know yet because it just simply hasn't unfolded. And as we go forward, I think there's going to be a huge learning curve for all of us in terms of what this proposal is. That's going to take some time, and as we understand it, and frankly, then as people of the state of Minnesota understand it, at least either for the good or the bad, I think the answer to your question will unfold. But at this point, I don't think any of us really have a true indication as to what the lobbying pressures will be. We know that there's certainly a strong contingent of Minnesotans that would like to see the Vikings stay here, and I think that's a foregone conclusion. But on the other hand, is this the best menu in terms of finding a solution? And that will be the grand question of the legislature.
What do you mean by that, Mr. Leader? Best menu? Is this the best menu?
Well, for instance, electronic pull tabs. Can we work through the Minneapolis thing? Those kind of questions.
Are you concerned about the funding mechanism?
Not necessarily yet, but it's a question about we really haven't delved into the funding mechanism, whether electronic pull tabs have the financial horsepower to do this or not. I don't know. And I do know this. I have a number of members in my own caucus that do not prefer an expansion of gambling, so that's going to factor into this in one way or another. So there's just a lot of questions, but these will unfold as we go forward. And
speaking of horsepower, do you still favor Racino as a...
Wow. Boy, I walked right into that one.
There you go.
Not bad, Kat. Well, certainly, no question about it. I'm an author of the Racino bill. I think it does. That one, frankly, does, if you will, have horsepower, and might play into this. We'll just have to see.
It's a two-beat, Pat. There you go.
Mr. Speaker, do you not like talking about this issue?
No, I'm fine with it. I just think you guys are probably bored with our answers as well. I mean, we're as bored as you are with our answers, which are until you see a bill, until you have the letters signed by the folks that are going to be supporting the initiative, whether it's the Minneapolis City Council, the Arden Hill, Ramsey County Commissioners, until you see all those things come together, it is very difficult. And I actually respect our members not wanting to say, well, I'll go on a Women of Prayer and say, well, if Minneapolis thinks they'll be there, then I'll vote for it. I mean, it's very important for them, and it's important for the advocates to also respect that. Until you see all the things in front of you, to see all the pieces of the puzzle in front of you, it's hard to say, I'm for this, I'm against that, I like this, I don't like that. So out of respect for the process and for their decision making, I think that is fair for them, and I think it is fair for especially the taxpayers of the state of Minnesota. This has got to be a good deal. As I said yesterday, hopefully this stadium stands the test of time like the current Metrodome has. It's an old car that still runs pretty well. It's got new drapes and a new roof, or new carpet and new roof. So it isn't maybe what we want anymore, and maybe it doesn't have the number of seats and be able to support what the team wants. But this next proposal should stand the test of time like the old Metrodome.
To Jeff's question, your members actually, many of them have been more specific than you've been about their feelings about the stadium Are you feeling slightly burned from what happened in November and the attacks on you and talk radio?
Well, I've got 2 kids that love me and a dog, so if I'm worried about attacks down here, I picked the wrong job. No, I mean, there are some of our members who are adamantly opposed to it and who are adamantly in favor of it. That's the beauty of the legislature. That's the beauty of politics. You know, and the job for the advocates, whether it's the Vikings, whether it's, you know, the authors of the bill, is to find the 68 votes and 34 votes to pass it. And so we're focused, again, I'm very excited about the streamlining bill that's coming up on Monday, because that actually focuses on jobs and the economy. So if there's a bill for the stadium, we can address it. Right now we have a bill for streamlining. We have a bill for mayoral control. I mean, those are the things we actually have on paper. So, and last November, I mean, that's last November.
Mr. Speaker, are you open to being one of those 68 members at this point?
Until we see a bill, I'm not going to say whether I vote for or against it.
Well, that wasn't my question. My question is, are you open to saying this is a Viking stadium with potentially public money, whether it's pull tabs or anything else, is something that I could support?
I'm not ready to say that yet.
And is this important enough to your members or to the people of Minnesota to push this to finish before the end of this session, get a debate and a vote?
Again, Pat, it's a hypothetical, and until you see, you know, if the Minneapolis City Council and the mayor don't have a letter or vote saying we support this, it is hard. And if I were, you know, if Maple Grove City Council said we're not for this, we don't like these provisions in a road project or a bus stop or something, I wouldn't vote for it. So I think it's unfair to the Minneapolis delegation that is going to be, you know, either voting for or against this to say go out again without having that hard concrete, you know, support from back home. So I think it's a hypothetical. You just can't say it. But
is that a condition, Mr. Speaker, that you need to hear from the Minneapolis City Council before you move forward?
No, I mean I think that's what the advocates have said, and I think that's what the governor said. You know,
you're not saying that.
I mean, again, it's on behalf of the Minneapolis delegation. I won't speak for them, and I'm sure they probably prefer that I don't speak for them. But I think it's only fair to them that they know where the folks back home are on an issue. So, again, we have said all along we want to make sure it's a fair process, whether it's committee, whether it's House floor, especially for the advocates, but also for the people of Minnesota. This is a big deal. It takes a lot. We've said this even last summer, that there are a lot of moving pieces and parts to this. It's very complicated. It should take a long time.
Why are you willing to cede to the wishes of the Minneapolis City Council when there's a lot of things that both of your bodies have done that the Minneapolis City Council is adamantly against? Why is it important on this issue?
Well, again, it doesn't have to be. That's just I'm saying out of respect for the Minneapolis delegation. I mean, it doesn't have to be. Yeah, we can move forward without them. I'm just trying to be respectful to them. And if they're going to,
on this issue specifically, I mean, if you look at
what's in their backyard,
so is, I don't know, LGA or Integration Aid, light rail.
Sure.
Those are not things where you cede to their wishes.
Well,
Why
I'm not
on
ceding
the
authority. I'm just saying it's hard for them to make a decision and to cast a vote without knowing what is going on back home. If they want to vote without it, that's fine. But again, until you have a proposal, until you have something on paper to actually vote for or against, it's hard for even them to say.
You're worried about the DFL members of the House on this issue when
No.
you're not worried about them on other issues. I'm just trying to get some clarity here.
No.
Yeah, can I just say, there are so many aspects of this that we don't either understand, you know, how the puzzle fits together or what the political dynamics are. I mean, I've had about maybe 15 minutes of briefing on this myself, and I'm not sure what the speaker has had, but I think it's so premature for us to offer virtually almost any comments on this. We've got to understand it a whole lot better ourselves. We've got to understand the political dynamics. My understanding is that the Minneapolis aspect of this is part and parcel of the total bill, and if it doesn't come out of the Minneapolis City Council, we can almost forget about everything else in terms of this whole initiative. So it's a very fragilely put together two pieces of legislation that have to work together. If they don't, nothing works. But again, the political dynamics, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Target Center, Excel Center, all of those things are going to factor into this equation. And it is, at least for me, a lot to learn and understand in the next couple of weeks.
Would you need to be willing to allow this bill to, a stadium bill, when you say it, to miss deadlines that you've set? Or would it have to meet all your already set deadlines.
Yeah, I mean, again,
In other words, is March 16th the deadline for it to pass out of the originating bodies?
again, we have deadlines for all bills, and this is a bill not unlike any other one. So, but until you see it, until you have it introduced, it's hard for us to say it'll miss deadline.
You're not willing to say whether you will or will not require it to meet your deadlines?
I don't think we can say that.
Mr. Speaker, do you think the majority leader should run again for re-election?
Absolutely, I like Matt.
Even against
What kind of position does this put him in your caucus, you as Speaker, knowing that he's been paired with another, obviously, Republican member?
Sure, we have a number of those, so does Senator Senjem. So, it will be up to the members, and it'll be up to their local BPOUs to work it out. But I think both Representative McFarland and Representative Dean are great members of our caucus, and we'd like to have both of them back here.
Senator Senjem, if you could give us a quick update on the bonding bill.
Very nice. 10 minutes on Vikings.
Well, only, we've continued to meet and hear projects. We're sort of in the general frames of putting the what-if bill together, from the standpoint of general categories: how much for higher education, how much for state agencies, is there anything left for local projects? And so that's where we are. We haven't really, frankly, gotten any further than that. But I will tell you, as this week as compared to maybe 2 weeks ago, we're more in tune with thinking about, okay, we've got quite a bit of information now. We've done the tours. We've had a number of hearings. We're going to have some more. But what might this bill look like? And I think I can say with some assuredness, at least as contrasted to the governor's bill, it's going to have a little more money going certainly into the area of higher education. But beyond that, I better not go any further.
No bill next week?
Doubtful. We want to hear a few more projects.
While you're talking about next week, tell us a little bit of preview. The Speaker told us what's coming up. What do you have?
Okay, I do have a list. Well, if you do like the Minnesota Vikings, and we all do, Senator Chamberlain's bill is going to be heard in the state and local Senate local government committee on Monday. We're going to be hearing a little bit about income tax subtraction for military veterans in Senator Ortman's committee. She's also going to take up the so-called marriage penalty relative to the income tax on Tuesday. Senator Gazelka in the Environment Committee is going to be talking about wolf hunting, and Senator Ingebrigtsen about muzzle loading and hunting, incorporating that into deer season. Senator Koch has got a bill, or at least a resolution, encouraging the federal government to continue on in the area of a search or a hunt for a solution towards nuclear storage, and we'll have that in the Senate Energy Committee, and again, we'll continue to meet in the Capital Investment Committee.
What's on the floor?
Probably, they're all substantial bills, but it's the general orders menu.
Voter ID movement next week.
The voter ID moved out of Finance Committee, I think, yesterday to Rules Committee. We don't have a hearing scheduled on that yet, but I suspect probably will in the next week or so.
Do you plan on holding that until you hear more about the Secretary of State's proposals in the area?
Well, we'll give that chance to unfold a little bit more. We're not going to, it's there, it's before us. I'm not sure the Secretary of State's bill is. I think Senator Howell may have something to do with that in terms of involvement. I'm not sure he's got a bill yet or not, but we'll continue to kind of look at that as a sidebar.
On constitutional amendments, I don't think we've seen the right to work amendment pop up yet in either body. Is that something that's going to happen this year?
Well, again, I mean, we're talking mayoral control, parent petitions, streamlining of permitting. These are things that are a part of our reform agenda. We've said from pretty much the very beginning that we were going to wait with constitutional amendments, especially until our members have had a chance to caucus it. We have not caucused it yet. So we'll work on these bills. We believe LIFO is something that is we're spending a significant amount of time on, especially with the governor, to see if we could get something he'd sign. So we haven't addressed it yet, but when we do, we'll let you know.
Do those bills fall under the same deadlines, March 16th deadlines?
I believe so, yes.
So if they aren't, do you view those, if they don't go through by the 16th, that they're...
Yeah, I mean, we'll continue. The committees have actually been working, very hard. That's why we had some shorter days on the floor. By the way, I will mention that we did exceed the Senate's time for session by 5 minutes and 30 seconds. So their time was 6 minutes. Senator Fischbach pointed out to me we're down now to 5:30.
In the House, what version of voter ID might be up on Thursday? I mean, is it?
It's Representative Kiffmeyer's bill. Yep. All right, we're over time.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.